Thank you, sir. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Security scenario in Northeast India, responses thereof, is the topic that has been given to me. First, you see the place I come from, the northeast of India. You see Meghalaya, Assam, Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Manipur, Mizoram. And the other state is Sikkim, which has been recently incorporated, as mentioned earlier. So the geostrategic importance of this particular region of India will be comprehensible to you by the very fact that as many 250 social groups are there, and they speak about 175 different kinds of languages. So you can imagine the kind of diversity that we can boast of. If you go back, you have a look at it, and 2% the area is only connected with the mainland India, while quite an area is along the international border. To be precise, it's more than 4,500 kilometers, which we share with Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, China, and Myanmar. The whole region is connected with the rest of the country by a mere 22 kilometer which land corridor, which is also called a chicken neck. Militarization in the Northeast has been a way of life. And you talk in terms of the NSCN, the Naga upsurge that had taken place around the independence of India itself. The Nagas had taken a recourse to Gandhi's, having assured them that the Nagas would have their own way of life, which was later alleged to have been denied. And the Naga ever since have been taking arms against the Indian nations. The sheer numbers of the armed rebel groups out there is absolutely mind-blowing. You have total number of 90 rebel groups. Manipur kind of boasts of 40, while Assam has about 34, Meghalaya 4. And out of these, most of them are active even now in Assam and Manipur. Mizoram has 2, and Mizoram has been a wonderful success story. It has, after the Mizo National Front had abandoned its struggle, and it has joined the political mainstream, ever since it's been kind of a sea of peace out there. Nagaland has the 2, and they are the mother of all insurgencies out there. Tripura continues to have 2, but they are much low-key of late. Insurgent groups out there begin their anti-state movement with avowed ideological and political pinning, only to be straying towards the later part of their existence, and they become some kind of bandits. It's been kind of a norm out there. In a battle, the non-state actor makes it a war of attrition, where the civilians living in the conflict zone are frequently used as pawns and asylum givers at gunpoint by the non-state actors. And as informants, the state is also no less, actually. Whatever the reasons are, the state also lands up doing things, perhaps, which it later regrets. Many contemporary struggles are also characterized by inter-ethnic group conflict. And small arms proliferation has been the order of the day out there. So if you go for a typological analysis of conflict in Northeast India, first you see a secessionist tendency, which is advocated by the groups like United Liberation Front of Assam, and of course, National Democratic Front of Bodoland. NSCN-IM and NSCN-K, as they call it, have been the champions of this particular trend. The second trend is that of autonomist in character. Whole lot of tribal groups in different places. They, for example, in Assam as well as in the other parts, they would suddenly come up, they would rediscover their greatness, and they would say that this land is ours, and they would stick to it with easy availability of weapons, and perhaps extortion's been the order of the day for quite some time there, and they take on the might of the state for a prolonged period, and some of them have got autonomy to quite an extent. Struggle for domination of one group over the other is yet another typology. The Boros versus the mainland Assamese, the Nagas, these are tribes. The Nagas versus the Kukis, and the Nagas again versus the Meiteis in Manipur. All these have resulted in untold miseries of millions of people out there. There is yet another type of intra-tribal classes which also lead to violence in the region. The Nagas, for example, are not fighting only against the Indian nation, they are also fighting with the Nagas. The Naga tribe itself is so huge in terms of its diversities, and one particular group won't tolerate the other group. As a result, they have got divided into many groups over a period of history, and in order to dominate over one group, they have indulged in wanton killings. There could be yet another category, those who are fighting for an autonomous state within the Constitution of India and to ask for Article 244A. We have had a very recent solid successes in two different hill districts of Assam called Karbi Anglong and North Kachar Hills, wherein pretty vitriolic attacks by a couple of groups out there had resulted in quite an amount of mayhem, but of late, sustained peace processes undertaken by Assam police in collaboration and direct superintendence of Indian state, it has resulted in their abrogation of the claims, and they have come and joined the peace process, and they have also joined the political process. There are some movements which seek to gain some benefits within the Indian constitution, such as recognition as a SC and ST. These are basically democratic violence. There are some movements which are irredentist in character. The demand for Nagalim, for example, encompassing the territories of Assam, Manipur, and Arunachal Pradesh, is the best example of this kind. The Bodos in Assam are also encroaching on reserve forest land and engineering human settlement, and later to demand that this land is ours. The Nagalim issue especially is causing a lot of concern out there, and it is also a potential of terrible violence, especially the Manipuris, the Meiteis won't allow the Nagas to have a piece of cake of Manipur. So is the case in respect of Assam, and they would rather invite mayhem rather than giving away. So we have a problem in hand on that account. Needless to say, the common reference point for all these movements is the Indian state, from whom they want to derive maximum allocation of resources and benefit. Now I talk about evolving conflict that's been happening out there, emanating from terrorism and insurgency are on a decline. Good to hear Mr. Mehra's point of view that it's been happening not only in Northeast India, it's been happening all over. But then it's being increasingly influenced by a different set of emerging conflict with potential for violence. You talk about the ethnic and identity upsurge movements, the Boros especially. Struggle over identity have of late taken the forms of ethnic cleansing. Quest for peace in Boru heartland in Assam seems to be an unending chimera. The area has witnessed a saga of ethnic hostility, wanton killing, destruction, and displacement. In 2008, in a place called Udalguri, I had to supervise it myself, and it was quite a situation when the Boros had indulged in an ethnic clash, along with the Muslims. And basically, the alienation from their land has suddenly become a terrible issue with the Muslims, especially the immigrant variety who have supposedly come from Bangladesh into their land and had captured their land, and so they had gone for an ethnic cleansing. And recently, in fact, in 2012, there has been a very interesting trend wherein the Boros, the Rabhas, and the ethnic groups, the mainland Assamese people, they have got together and they have decided that enough is enough. We have enough, immigrant Muslim coming over from Bangladesh. So they had thought that occupied their land and their resources had become scanty, so they had gone to hit them. And this has had a rippling effect all over the country. In fact, entire lot of people belonging to Assam had to be coming back to Assam from different parts of India. For quite some time, it has become a problematic issue out there. Insurgency fatigue on one hand and the perception of deprivation on the other has made the conflict pockets to now explore new modes of protest. And now we have this Maoist scenario, the Maoist syndrome, which Surinder Pandey has just talked about, having come in its own way into Assam. You imagine a scenario in Assam where there has been the armed movements been on for quite some time now, and suddenly the ideological indoctrination of entire lot of people, because we have districts of Kokrajhar, which is pretty close to Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, where the Maoists are really coming up in big way, and they interact with the people this part of the land, and they obviously get influence. And ULFA had an intrinsic differences with the Maoists, because the ULFA or the PLA kind, the PLA, the self-proclaimed Maoists of Manipur, they are a little insurgent variety. They are not oriented towards mass-based struggles. But then, and they would say, the Maoists, the mainland Maoists would be advocating in favor of protecting the proletariats. They would say the Bihari workers, the workers from the mainland India, you are not going to target. But these people are kind of torn between two walls of working for the people in general together with a left-oriented ideology, but then they have a secessionist kind of an attitude towards their stand on India. So they would rather develop their own kinds of brand of Maoism. So now this has been helping the security forces, because they are a little confused lot, but then in terms of capability of armed aggression, they are definitely second to none. Now the communal challenges is yet not a problem that Assam has been facing quite some time now. The dichotomy between the local and the immigrant Muslim has become more polarized. There's a tactical alliance between the Boros and the non-Boros, as I had mentioned earlier. Now what is happening, very interestingly, Assam has been absolutely a secularist, place of secular kind of a mindset. People out there in Assam has been living for ages with their Muslim brethren. And there hasn't been much of a problem. But when the immigrants issue has come up, and because of the politics, what is happening of late is some kind of a coming together on the religious line of the people. So this is causing further hiatus of communities, and this has a tremendous potential of conflict. Now we have this drive for updating of national register that is going on. It's a tremendously contentious issue. And more pronounced assertions is getting to be seen in Assam by the Muslim political parties. And this has definitely polarization effects. In terms of responses, Assam police and the society in Assam has been responding, I think, in a manner that it has been containing the scenario to quite an extent. If you see the graphics, in 2011, 2010 to 11, it has really come down the cases of armed violence. The number of incidents from 2006 to 2011 has also come down. The gun battle is in the blue, dark blue. The greens are attacks on civilians and police. The numbers have really come down, and it has come to a knot. It's really heartening. In the year 2012 to 2013, the civilian killing has practically come to a knot. And we had quite a number of explosions, ladies and gentlemen, if you could have a look. And it was quite a torrid situation during the years of 2007, 8, 9. These are the kind of developments we've been having. Bosdrung is pretty famous. The Operation All Clear was conducted by Bhutanese army with a great deal of help from others. And 2004, the Cox's Bazar Arms Hall, it was from the Hong Kong port, a shipload of arms had gone over to Cox's Bazar, and now the Bangladeshi minister is in jail right now. And these were entirely going towards the Northeast militants. And nexus of Myanmar Army, the UNLF, was proved sometimes back. UNLF is another dreaded organization with a lot of firearms, firepower. Now the narcotic connection, the Myanmar, you know about Golden Triangle, right near that place called Ruili is there. And there you have this War United National Army, which was fighting the Burmese junta for quite some time. And the Chinese had wooed them after a point of time. in consideration against goodies in Myanmar, and they have shifted their loyalties and they have stopped fighting the Burmese junta, all right, but then they are the biggest producer of amphetamines for the world at this moment. And with amphetamines, the drugs, the arms proliferation, they've been captaining that particular area quite in a big way. Paresh Borua, the United Liberation Front of Assam chieftain, he is known to be a very major conduit of weapons, and he basically gets them all from United National Army. You have this famous Black House. Black House is basically supposed to be illicit Chinese factories, and the TLC and Norinco, from where the arms are seem to be coming into the Northeast in a big way and an incessant way. And the gentleman from the Red Corridor Belt would agree that they've been finding off late a lot of weapons coming in from Northeast, and they're all originating in that Myanmar belt. We've got to be careful about that. So this is how a lot of surrenders have taken place, if you see the slide. And it's very interesting. And this ceasefire, they call it ceasefire. We have entire lot of ceasefire agreements with a whole lot of sundry groups. But then the solution sometimes turns out to be bigger than the problem itself. Those guys in the so-called ceasefire tend to be indulging in activity that is not absolutely acceptable. Though their weapons are supposed to be in a well-administered armory, they are allowed certain amount of leeway in return for their, going into the peaceful way. But then it seems to be having a cost. So Assam Police has been trying to facilitate a peaceful atmosphere by preventing direct violence by taking people as stakeholders, involving civil society in the conflict resolution process, promoting a culture of dialogue by respecting human rights, creating a peace climate where issues and grievances of the people and social groups can be democratically and peacefully solved. The picture that you see, ladies and gentlemen, is that of the police personnel, the chief of police of Assam, and yours faithfully, with these kids. They belong to the parents families whose father has been killed by a terrorist. So right at this moment, 1,068 children of terrorist violence all over Assam, they all belong to below poverty line. It's a famous concept in India. I'm sure you've heard about that, below poverty line. The poor people who do not earn a particular amount are classified under that category. So those cases, we look after their educational rehabilitation, and our people visit their houses and they help them. They do hand-holding and also psycho-counseling, etc., to these groups of people, and we keep, our people visit. They ensure that the assistance they get there for educational rehabilitation, it's a fair amount of money that is given to their respective bank accounts, and it's administered with a lot of sincerity and honesty. And this money comes from Government of India, and it goes straight in a bank to the bank in a check forms, and it's been turning out to be, it's called Project Aswas by Assam Police, and it's turning out to be quite a success story, and it has a tremendous credibility in Assam. In fact, Government of India has taken note of it and has asked the other states also to follow this particular model. And by indulging in this is also an Assam Police effort to reach out to the people who need help. And this kind of effort has been causing a lot of credibility to the police effort to, get at the bad guys also. The unified command structure that is in existence in Assam, with equal partnership of Indian Army, the police, and central paramilitary forces in operational activities with special focus on human rights. We emphasize a great deal, of late especially on these issues, and rule of law has helped while neutralizing the threats. The effort of State of Assam with the proactive collaboration of Government of India in enlisting the support of the neighboring countries at various levels has yielded results. As I mentioned, Operation All Clear by Bhutan Army, Bangladesh government's proactive drive against Northeast Ultras, denial of sanctuaries despite internal constraints in Myanmar to the Northeastern rebels of late, These are the very positive aspects. We must be working a great deal on this. International pressures would also really help in this regard. They are not really bad, though they've been generally, the tendency in India is to brand Bangladesh, brand Myanmar as bad. But they are not. They have proved that. They mean good. It's just that this could be beyond their means to be keeping these bad characters at bay. Their terrains are as bad. They have equal amount of problems in their own hands to be addressing issues of other countries. So perhaps this has been on in their land for quite some time now, but with a proper kind of a liaising, I'm sure Bangladesh and Myanmar and Nepal, for that matter, and Bhutan, of course, with us already, could be, made equal partners in our joint effort to bring about peace. Yes. So I've kind of finished. Challenges ahead, the strategy, the changing nature of conflict, of course. Today we have a tremendously, fiercely assertive civil society and media. The issue of governance, land allotment, rehabilitation, displacement, transparency in administration, people's participation in community resources have become more crucial than before. People want development, but they want transparent development. So we want them back, yes, but to build, not to destroy. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen.